I mean, there's no reason for me to move. Wait, let me get my notes up. There's no reason for me to move before the winter because I'm in a great place. I mean, there's no reason. But once the winter's over, I got to move back to New York. And I assume by the winter's over, there'll either be a therapeutic or a vaccine, or if the virus is still very low, because in New York it's only at zero point 0.7,
Right.
then I'm not going to live in a high rise again. I'm going to rent a beautiful 2-bedroom, third floor penthouse in a renovated brownstone, because the rents have come down so incredibly cheap.
Right.
I mean, I can get the most gorgeous apartment in a brownstone today for $5,400 a month.
Right. A lot of supply right now.
A lot of supply, and it's going to be more, especially if they do open the schools.
Also, but Upper West Side hasn't been doing well these days.
I'm moving to the east side.
Okay.
I can't handle the crime that's going on there.
Right.
We're going to move as close to the river as possible. Is there any way to cut down even more on the echo? Like move to a smaller room? Are you in your office?
I am.
With all your people are there?
No, just 2 people are here. No one's coming in.
A smaller room. That's probably going to be better.
Okay, hang on one second. Let me. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Hey, Gary, can you hear me?
Perfect.
I'm walking around still, though.
Well, you're cutting in and out, though. That's the problem.
I'm cutting in and out in that conference room.
In the one you were in?
The one I was just in right now.
You're not cutting in and out right now. You're doing fine right now. I can hear you fine.
Okay. Well, I'm back.
We'll have to deal a little bit with the echo. Don't worry about it. Of course, I'm trying to find my notes, and I can only find half of them. I guess I'm going to be winging it more than I thought.
Gary, how is that? It's still bad?
It's better. It's good enough, David. It's fine. It's fine. Let me just see if I can find my notes. I know I have half of them. How did I do this? Let me find my notes. Let's see. Libraries. Oh, okay. I got my notes. Okay, here's Vikrant. Okay, we got Vikrant.
Hey, Gary.
All right, we got Dave, we got Vikrant. We got 8 participants. I don't know if we're starting without them. We may be starting without them. All right, let me see.
Hey, David.
Hey, I think we don't have somebody, participants.
Vikrant, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. Talk again, Vikrant.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello.
David, I can hear him fine.
Okay,
David, can you hear me?
I'm not hearing him from my end.
You're not muted.
Okay.
Hey, participants, can participants hear me? All right, Cheryl says she can hear me. Okay, good. Everybody can hear us. That's
Okay,
good.
great.
Okay, David, can you hear Vikrant? Vikrant, say hi. Can you hear Vikrant?
Hey. Hi, David. Can you hear me? Hello, hello, hello.
David, you can't hear Vikrant?
I can't for whatever reason, but I can hear you fine.
No, but you got to hear him. It's a 3-way conversation. That's not going to work. David, you have something muted?
You know what? I'm going to log back in and log back on.
Okay.
I'll be right
In the
back.
meantime, folks, all the participants, going to be a great panel. Just give us a few minutes. Give us a few minutes. We'll start in 1 second. Going to start in a minute. Let me just make sure that. Okay, I got the chat here. All right, participants, sit tight. All right, David, you're back.
I'm back.
Yeah,
I can hear
Now, David?
Now
I can hear you.
Can you hear
Okay,
Vikrant?
good.
Hey, Vikrant.
Okay, good.
Good.
We're all set. Okay, good.
Good.
So, in this case, welcome everybody. We're going to have a great conversation today. Let me just check one thing. I just want to start by saying that the most important piece is that I am pretty sure that everybody is wearing pants. So, in case anybody was concerned about that, everybody is wearing pants. Anyway, so I want to start out by this is going to be a conversation about OTT, especially AVOD, replace regular broadcast TV and premium services, and we're going to probably jump around a little bit, and we're definitely about every 15 minutes we're going to take your questions. So definitely be typing stuff that you want us to bring in. Let me first start by introducing the three of us. Let me start with myself. My name is Gary Delfiner. I'm a publisher, been in the space for about 11, 12 years. I own a whole bunch of channels. The most well-known and most popular is called Watch Free Flicks. It's AVOD, so I do have slight vested interest in that format, and that's me. Vikrant?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Vikrant, co-founder of Future Today. We are an OTT publishing platform. We have channels in movies and television, kids and family, and lifestyle categories, manage about 700 channels on platforms like Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, smart TVs, etc. Run are owned and operated, but then also work with third parties, content creators, media companies, influencers to help them get distribution on streaming devices and services.
Perfect. David?
Hey guys, thank you for joining everyone. Wish I could see you in person for sure. I'm the head of digital media rights, and we operate 7 OTT channels. We've been an OTT publisher for about 7 years now, and we started off with 2 channels and have grown into 7 channels across different content verticals. We're also a distribution company and social media publisher. That's a big part of our business. And we also run a digital video advertising network. So, that helps us be on the ground, in the trenches, in the digital video advertising programmatic business, and seeing the changes and the growth in that business over the past several years.
Great. So I want to start out with a stat. 95 hours a month. OTT viewing is 95 hours a month. for a lot of people. And I would say that would put us all in the right biz. I want to jump right to the key question, and then we'll divert from there. What do you guys think about whether or not OTT, maybe specifically or including AVOD, will that replace over the next couple of years or a little bit longer broadcast TV and premium channels? I want to hear your thoughts on that, and then we'll walk from there. Vikrant?
Yeah, I can go first, Gary. So, I'm surprised that people don't talk about this more, but I'm sure a lot of us have heard that Disney shut down its linear channels in the UK completely. You can't get Disney on linear anymore. The focus is Disney Plus, right? So I don't even know if this is a question anymore. It's already happening, right? And it's just a matter of time. Obviously, the UK, the business was much smaller for them, right, compared to here in the US. But I think just philosophically, it's a landmark move, because what it's saying is that Disney, which is the biggest, arguably the most marquee company in the media space, has decided to give up on linear completely and is focusing all its efforts on OTT, right? So, frankly, I don't think it's even a question.
And how long a period of time?
So I think what we're going to see is slow decline. I think we're going to continue to see declines. Every quarter, MVPDs are losing subscribers, and just like we saw with COVID, where this kind of supernatural phenomena, so to speak, expedited the adoption and growth and the consumption all of a sudden. I think there's going to be a time, kind of like you have with hockey stick curves, where all of a sudden it's going to drop, right?
David?
So
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
David?
Coming from a background of working in traditional media, working at cable networks, Sundance channels, Showtime networks, we've been hearing about churn for many years now. And I actually thought it would take a lot longer for churn off of pay TV to happen. And every year when I look at the numbers and the amount of people who have cut off pay TV, especially over the past 2 to 3 years, pretty accelerated churn off of pay TV, which is surprising. And I think we're down. I mean, there's different data sets out there, but some data sets we're looking at 63% of US households now are pay TV subscribers, with 73% on OTT, which is incredible. I thought it would take a few more years for us to get there. I think in terms of OTT really being the dominant viewing platform, pay TV is going to be around. My guess is for at least another 5 years, probably 5 to 7 years, but it's going to be pretty quick. And I think when you look at the OTT space, it's really a race between the SVOD services. I don't know if it's much of a race, because Netflix will always stay dominant.
By the way, that's my next seminar.
Got it. Oh. But certainly Avod, I think even for us that work in the space, it took me by surprise too. And for us, we've always been a hybrid model, for better or for worse. Probably for worse now. We probably should have went full AVOD in the beginning. But we went hybrid, meaning our channels are available for subscribers if they don't want to watch ads. And I think the people who bet fully on AVOD, even before the cable networks came in, I think they put themselves in a wonderful position to scale their audience and to see programmatic grow so quickly and so dominantly over the past few years.
So Alex, who's watching, and again, you guys jump in with some questions. I'll incorporate them as we go along. I kind of can do that fairly easily. Alex, who is a millennial, he says that one of the reasons that this might happen sooner than later is because of the millennials, because we know millennials, including those who are in my family, don't buy television, don't watch broadcast. But I think that's an important point. But I wanted to bring up another point. Here's what I think. First of all, a question would be, do you think this would have happened, pandemic or not? Did the pandemic just potentially speed this up? But here's what I think is a critical factor, and you guys weigh in on what you think. Both of the big SVOD services, that being Amazon and Netflix and Amazon, both invested billions, like to the tune of 10 billion a year, in new programming. Which I got to tell you, when I first saw that, I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world, because when would they ever get into profit? But at the end of the day, it turns out that the times met them. And one of the reasons that they are doing so well right now in terms of that platform is that they're the only place you can get new programming. So I think that is helping the demise of, regular television, because there's no new TV unless you want to watch, reality shows. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, and I mean, up until now, there was no sports either, right? So you didn't have any new programming and you didn't have any sports. And so there really wasn't any reason to tune into, except for news, which for the most part was pretty gloomy. There was no reason to tune into television, linear. So, yeah, I
You
completely
think it's a big factor? New programming is a big factor, like I'm suggesting it is?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. And I think, going forward, I think it's going to be, it's going to continue, right? Because that's how, especially for subscription services, where when you're paying 5, 10, 15, how much ever, you're paying for a service, there's this expectation that you have as a user that you're going to get new programming, you're going to get premium programming at a regular cadence. And so that just, obviously, it makes it more difficult for subscription services to thrive, given that expectation. But for companies that can afford to, invest and generate new programming, absolutely.
But that's not even the issue on some level, because there is no way right now for anybody to do new programming because of COVID. David, let me ask you this. The premium services, because when I talk about OTT replacing broadcast, I'm also talking about premium. Premium was going to be the savior. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when HBO came in, because I was producing movies for HBO at the time, that it was the savior. I mean, it was going to ruin broadcast television. How did that work out? So, I mean, what do you think about the premium services? Are they all going to go, or are they all transposing into OTT anyway?
Well, I think as everyone's playing catch up with Netflix, and they completely disrupted the entire industry. And I mean, everyone knows all of the changes that's going on at Warner Media. And really, I don't think premium as we know it will probably, it's really just going to be bundled packages, right? So HBO Max having the best bundled packages of all the best content under the Warner Media umbrella. Same thing with Peacock and with Comcast Universal, just putting their best programs underneath the Peacock umbrella. And it will be interesting also to see what they do with the Xumo acquisition, because what's been a really interesting development over the past few years is really on the AVOD side, the push into virtual MVPD and specifically digital linear, and really seeing that the passive linear experience can garner such huge audiences. I mean, that really surprised me too. And, kudos to the people who bet, like Pluto TV, on that model. And everybody's now being a copycat in the industry to create virtual MVPD AVOD services or advertising-based services that can compete. So, going back to your question in terms of premium, I think it's, everyone's playing catch up. Premium as we know it will be changed completely. It already has, and everybody's playing catch up to Netflix.
Ultimately, one of the decisions, one of the factors will be advertising, because if there's a migration, which I believe there is, and I have a vested interest in that happening, if there's a migration from broadcast TV to OTT, and we know that the OTT, advertising market is growing in leaps and bounds by billions, at a certain point, if the advertisers no longer want to advertise on broadcast television because their viewership is much older and isn't in that sweet spot of 18 to 34, won't that further the demise of broadcast television? And it goes without saying, probably premium television as well, where there is no advertising.
Right. And, we look at the big SVOD services and, the profit that they're able to generate in terms of what Netflix and Amazon and Hulu are doing. But yes, when you look at the advertising space and you look at the amount that's, allocated towards, in the past, pay TV, and those dollars shifting now into OTT, I mean, we're talking tens of billions of dollars. And that shift, while it's happening now, still certain brands have not put a larger percentage into OTT. They're still betting on pay TV. Obviously, pay TV still has a huge audience.
Which is dwindling.
It is dwindling, but you're seeing it now. I mean, when we talk to all our ad agency partners, it's still, they're still trying to convince the brands to allocate more of their budget towards OTT. And what you're also seeing is some of the brands obviously going more in-house. So they're cutting out some of the buying side from the media agencies and taking on the buying responsibilities in-house with their in-house programmatic team. So the change is happening. It could happen faster. I would love for that to happen just because we're in the space, but no doubt it's accelerating right now.
Well, let me take a little different position. And those of you who are listening, please give us some questions and we're going to incorporate them in. I can see them in front of me. So, start writing, folks, jump in. Let me ask you this. With AVOD and SVOD, where do you guys think that the next couple of years, and let's only look 2 or 3, because things are happening so quickly, where do you think both of those platforms are going to go? What do you think is going to be the evolution or even the revolution? And at the end of the day, where do you see them playing the part if we all agree that broadcast television and premium services are on the downslope and not on the high side?
Yeah. So if you look at the evolution of this transformation traditional to OTT and streaming, when Netflix really started to migrate away from its DVD business into streaming, you had an influx of new subscription-based services that were launching left, right, and center, right? And to this day, some of those continue to exist, right? Some of them were trying to be mass market. A lot of them were trying to be niche, right? But there are significant challenges to scaling up a niche subscription business. There are significant challenges to scaling up, even a mass market subscription business, right? From a content investment perspective, whether you're producing it or whether you're licensing it, from a customer acquisition perspective, from a technology and platform perspective, right? So
a lot of challenges.
Lots of challenges. So on the subscription side, I feel like there is still a number of subscription services that have no business to exist, right? And they might be, most of them are losing money. Some of them are not generating anything significant. Companies are continuing to run them for the sake of running them.
But we know what's going to happen. We know what's going to likely happen with those.
Right.
I mean, if we were all running them, we know what we would do with those. We turn them into AVOD next week.
Right. Exactly. So I see on that side, I feel like you're going to have the big boys competing, right? The likes of Netflix and Amazon and Disney and HBO and CBS and a number of broadcasters. And there's probably going to be 20 services there, perhaps, that will be names that you can come up with, top of your head. And then for everything else, I feel like it would either be shut off or it would be migrated onto an ad-supported system, right?
David,
now,
Well, okay, again, I want David.
Sorry, I was just going to say now, even if you think about, migrating some of these services onto ad supported, the problem is that a lot of these services are not going to have enough scale because they're so niche that, if you have 20,000 subscribers, right, or 50,000 subscribers paying $5, it's still some money. If you switch it over to ad supported, to be able to attract the advertising dollars, right, it's going to be so hard that I feel like a lot of them, even if they try to migrate over, they would have to just basically shut them off because the cost of running them is not going to stack up to the revenue that you would generate given that small audience that you have.
David, what do you think about that same question about where it's going to go?
For several years now, everyone's been talking about at some point Netflix is going to have to accept advertising. Again, because if you look at the ad market versus subscription, the ad market ultimately, when those pay TV dollars fully come into OTT, it will dwarf subscription dollars. And when that happens, I think what you're going to start to see, I don't think Netflix migrates away from subscription, but I think what's going to happen is it's going to kind of turn into the Hulu Live model, where it's a subscription model, but they allow for limited advertising because everybody's going to want a piece of the advertising pie. I don't think, I still think Netflix and Amazon will be the leaders. And I think for the rest, everyone's playing catch up, including the HBO Max, Disney Pluses. But on the full advertising side, I think it's just going to be a race between all the virtual MVPD services, between obviously Pluto TV. Peacock is still developing their model. It seems like it changes from time to time, but obviously
if you're a 1,000-pound gorilla, you have some time to deal with it.
Right, but I think the virtual MVPDs that are ad-supported, there's going to be a race as to who's going to be the clear leader. But certainly, people will always be playing catch-up to Netflix and Amazon Prime.
Which brings me to Vikram.
Sorry, Gary. So just to add to that, right? In the advertising business, the only thing that matters is scale. If you don't have scale, you can't exist, right?
Exactly.
And so if you look at all the services that can potentially have scale, going forward, you obviously have the Tubies of the world, the Plutos of the world, but
the happy kids.
At the end of
the happy kids of the world.
The happy kids of the world, obviously. But at the end of the day, if you think about who's really going to have the scale, it's the OEMs, it's the Rokus, it's the Samsungs, it's the Vizios, because they essentially are selling the hardware that people are using to consume content, right? So they have the ability to guide that consumption experience into whatever they want, right? So at the end of the day, I think the guys that are going to be becoming significant players in the Avod space, and you see that with Roku today with the Roku channel, are the OEMs, right? Samsung's working, with the success of TV Plus, Samsung's laying the foundation for what that service is going to be and how they're going to compete with the free ad-supported model in a more meaningful, bigger way. Vizio's trying to follow the footprint, right? So at the end of the day, the companies that will have scale and will really be able to influence the consumption experience, the consumption of content, and eventually the advertising that flows through these pipes, I feel are going to be the OEMs who are just beginning to kind of take a look at this and
well, I want to go someplace. I want to talk about linear because you brought that up, but I want to ask a question about about subscription, about money that it costs, to buy subscriptions. At the end of the day, the average viewer is spending about, I think it's, David, you might know better than me. Is it 10 or maybe $10 average, for buying their subscriptions or spending whatever money? If it's not even on Netflix or Amazon, it's $3.99 plus a $4.99. Isn't there a point of diminishing returns where the consumer is going to say no mas, and they're just going to say, I don't want to spend $30, $40, $50 or $100 a month? I mean, isn't that going to be a limiting factor?
That's why SVOD has gotten very crowded over the past few years, especially with new OTT entrants into the space, because earlier they had looked at the success of these large SVOD services and said, okay, I want to be an SVOD player as well. But there's data out there in terms of households, and many households already have 2 to 3 subscriptions under their household. And it's typically Netflix, and then it's a toss-up between Amazon Prime and Hulu. And then some people who have a third service, it's typically in a niche service. For instance, it could be anime, it could be British TV, it could be whatever. But I think oftentimes, Prime subscribers, you're going to be a Prime subscriber not necessarily because of the video platform they have. It's because you want that free shipping, right? And so
next day shipping.
Right, exactly. So, in the end, that's why I say Amazon's always going to be there, because it's not their core business. Their core business is e-commerce, and video is secondary.
What about linear? Let's just jump into that a little bit, because that's clearly, part of the whole OTT experience. I mean, do we believe in linear? I mean, or do we not believe in linear? Is it just that a couple of companies paid a fortune of money for 2 major services? Or is linear a real force in where we're going? And doesn't linear bring us back to almost regular broadcast television?
It comes full circle. Just from our experience, when we launched our channels, they're all video on demand channels. And we got into the digital linear space last year around this time. We started off with Samsung TV Plus. We're now on 3 platforms. And we converted our channels, or we made a digital linear option available on those platforms. And we've seen incredible growth on digital linear and very strong advertising revenue on digital linear. Now, when you talk to the digital linear platforms, it's not like Roku, where the bar to entry is very low, where you can create an app and get onto the Roku platform or the Fire TV platform or Apple TV. To get onto digital linear, it's almost like the cable days, where if you have a channel, you have to pitch the cable and satellite companies to gain carriage. And we all know how difficult those negotiations are, because there's only a fixed amount of bandwidth. Now, in the case of virtual MVPD, there's probably unlimited bandwidth. It's just they don't want to onboard 500 plus digital linear channels. It won't make for a good experience. And when you speak to a lot of these platforms, they do want to limit. It seems like that number is about 200 to now 300. When we were speaking to them last year, it's about 200. And now it's about 300 channel limit, where they want to keep it fixed within that number, so that even if you are able to secure a carriage deal on a virtual MVPD platform for digital linear, you have to keep growing your audience, because there's a chance that they may cut you. Because if that remains a fixed number, 200 to 300 channels, and there's a lot of competition and a lot of great channels out there, you just have to make sure that you're always providing your audience with great content. You're always growing that, your channel, and it's competitive.
One of our viewers, Jesse, is mentioning that there's already a blur between digital linear and broadcast TV. I mean, aren't they in essence the same thing, except that you have more choices? And you have them more readily available. But some of those choices, I mean, I see channels on some of the linear TVs that are like, 2 brothers eat a piece of pie, and that's the whole channel. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. I'm being, hyperbolic about it. I see regular, channels that everybody's watching, whether it be the news or whether it be either, the channels that you guys have. But then we see all these smaller channels that, I mean, if anybody past their grandmother is watching, what good is it? I mean, I guess my question is, in a linear space, what is going to differentiate, linear from just becoming full turnaround broadcast TV again?
So So that's a good question, Gary. And, referring to Jesse's question, absolutely, there is a blurring of the lines between broadcast and, let's say, digital linear. Now, when you look at the leading virtual MVPD platforms, some of them are pulling in the live linear feeds. So it's a mix. It's a mix of live linear feeds, and it's a mix of digital linear stitched channels, right? And so the difference is when you're looking at these leading virtual MVPD platforms, a lot of them are fully ad supported. So you don't have to subscribe as you do pay TV and get access to those channels. You can simply, download the application and tune into some of those live linear channels for free.
Let me kind of go to another arena, because I'm asking the questions about kind of the future of this business in a way. I have not understood ever why AVOD channels, including mine, I understand why, because you need a lot of money to do what I'm about to suggest, but is the future not going to be where AVOD channels like all of ours are going to start producing original programming? Isn't that where this needs to go? Now, I understand Vikrant's going to say, and he's going to be right, it's tied into scale. That's the first thing that I would say as well. But what if the three of us got together, or the 10 of us got together, and we formed our own, programming bubble, and we all chipped in to start doing programming together? And not only did we put it on our channels, because if somebody else had the programming, they would give it to us anyway, but then we not only get to make the programming, have it potentially exclusive, depending on how good it is, to our channels, and then distribute it worldwide. I don't understand why that hasn't happened yet, and probably at the end of this phone call, the three of us should do that. But what do you think about in terms of AVOD moving into and stepping on what the subscription channels are doing? And why aren't they doing it? Because libraries will not sustain the business.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point, Gary. I think in general, I feel like
go back.
There needs to be content.
Vikrant, you froze. So say that again.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like differentiation.
Vikrant, you're coming in and out.
Oh, sorry. Is it any better now?
Now it's better.
Okay. No, I was just saying that you bring up a great point, because when I look at different AVOD services today, I feel like from a user's perspective, you need to have content differentiation, because I feel like right now there's a lot of overlap between different services and the content that they're offering, right? And it's because Paramount may have the same 10 titles that are available for the AVOD window right now. So every service has got those 10 titles, right? I'm just making this up. But I think the point is well taken, that there needs to be content. And, in the long run, content differentiation, I think, is going to be a key factor. And what your content acquisition strategy is going to be a key factor in terms of how you differentiate yourself. Now, with respect to original programming, we've, with Happy Kids as an example, we've dabbled with some of that. The challenge just is, it's expensive, requires a lot of money and capital. And second, it's risky, right? You don't know what's going to stick. Even with Netflix, they spend tens of billions of dollars. How many original shows that they're producing are getting the viewership that they think they should?
Well, let me move into a little. David, do you want to address that as well?
Sure. It's an interesting topic in terms of original programming, and my thoughts on it is that you really need to be well capitalized to get into original programming. And you cannot just bet on a few shows. You need a full slate so that 20% of those shows, it's the 80-20 rule, can carry you, that potentially will become hits for your channel and your service to carry your service, but potentially 80% of that slate will not fare as well. So you really need to have the capital to do original programming. And I think it's very risky unless you're well capitalized. I also think that you can still get away with growing your service with library content. And look at Tubi. Tubi is a great example. Tubi in one ranking this year came up 5th out of all services. You know, Netflix being 1, Amazon 2, Hulu 3, Disney Plus 4, and Tubi came up ranking number 5 in terms of audience share, which is phenomenal.
Significant.
And when you look at Tubi's lineup, you know, this is obviously New Fox acquiring them. You know, they built their audience on library content. And yes, they had some Hollywood movies in there, but these were older library movies. And when you look at all the leading virtual MVPD services, and this is what you alluded to earlier, Gary, you have these full channels that are based on one TV show, right? And Stir calls that section binge TV, where you're just binging on that same typically retro TV show. It's all library, and there's a huge audience base for library. And you know, when Netflix was able to release some data the other year where, hey, what were the biggest shows? It was Friends and it was The Office, right? I mean, you know, and of course Seinfeld was still doing very well. So these are all older library shows. So I do believe you can build your service on library, and getting into originals is a very challenging and tricky proposition.
So let me shift a little to this direction. If it's not going to be original programming, I guess my question is, there'll be a whole bunch of AVOD channels, all of which, all of us, including me, who are getting the same content, you know, that's on Tubi. I have similar content to Tubi, similar content to FilmRise, similar content to Fossum, similar content, you know, to a whole bunch of places, because in our business, we don't really have a big problem with, you know, being non-exclusive. And so my question is this, and I have an answer for this, but I want to hear you guys, especially for our viewers, you know, the people who are participating. What is it, especially, you know, for content holders, and there's quite a few content developers and holders who are watching us right now, what is it that really is going to be the differentiating piece that is going to make Watch Free Flicks potentially get more viewers, you know, than something else? I mean, what's going to be the mitigating circumstance?
Yeah, I think it's two things. I think it's discovery and user experience, right? If you look at Tubi as an example, Tubi has 20,000 shows, movies, titles that are available through the library, right?
But not a lot of movies.
No, yeah. I mean, we just announced on Happy Kids as an example. We counted up. We have 55,000 videos, movies, TV shows, educational content, right?
That's it.
So
it's like, what are you waiting for to scale up?
Exactly. So the question is, when you have all this content and the discovery mechanism is navigation driven as opposed to search driven, right? Where YouTube, you can go and search and it's so easy. Although the search experience is getting better with voice search and whatnot, but you know, it's going to take time for people to change their behavior. So a lot of people still, you know, bring up the old fashioned keyboard and type in the name of the movie, title, whatever. When the experience is so kind of navigation driven as opposed to search driven, how do you help people discover content that they want, right? And if I have a specific title in mind or a specific type of title in mind, it's much easier because I could go to the category and I could look for it and whatnot. But, you know, a lot of the times I don't know what I want to watch, right? So I spend 30 minutes browsing through Netflix and I end up sleeping without watching anything because, you know, I'm just too sleepy and tired by the end of it. So I personally feel that it's the discovery experience and then overall the user experience.
David?
Right?
And Gary, that's a great question. And it's almost like a very insider question because not everyone understands the differences between a lot of these mainstream advertiser-based services. And, you know, when you really look at the data, if you're running these OTT channels, and every service should have thousands of titles, right? That typically what you place on your playlist, so the first 3 playlists and how you organize your titles within the first 3 playlists, that's incredibly important as to how well those titles are going to perform and what your service is all about. And so for us, we operate 7 OTT channels, one of which is a general entertainment channel. And I have to say, certainly it's competitive because there's other mainstream channels out there. We're vying for some of the same content, some of which is non-exclusive. But to Vikrant's point, yeah, it is a discovery issue. It's how you curate that content, how you set up your playlist, what titles you put into those playlists, because everybody knows whenever we're searching for content we want to watch on any service, you're flipping through so many titles and playlists and at the end of the day, oftentimes you don't know what you want to watch because there's such a glut of content. So it is a discovery issue. And for us, that's why, we place a lot of emphasis on some of our niche channels because, we'll let the Netflix, Amazon, Hulu's play in one field. We want a slice of the pie. Obviously, we're always looking to grow that piece of the pie. But if we can have a slice of the pie, they're handling mainstream viewing. So if we can go into a niche that works and there's a dedicated fan base, audience base for that content, that's great. That's who we're serving and that's who we're marketing to.
And you know what? That is the answer that I was going to give. The dedicated fan base. I said this last summit that we did. On my channel on Watch Reflex, I have right now about 3,000, maybe 3,500 movies and TV shows. Hopefully in the next couple of months, it'll be closer to 5,000. Here's an amazing statistic, which is probably true for all of us. On my report that I get every day as to how many of my titles are watched, 96%, 90% of every one of my titles on any given day has gotten at least one view. To me, that is the reason that my channel, continues to have a good viewership. I see, again, it's not just me. I know it's true for Happy Kids. I know it's true for you and, the other channels that you guys have and others that are out there. I think that the key to it is really you develop an audience, you develop a faithful audience because you keep giving them what it is that they want to see. I think that the detriment, that a channel's detriment is too much diversity in terms of you can get this everywhere. I mean, who can't get Top Gun everywhere? It only plays on HBO 150 times a week. I mean, yet don't give me Top Gun. I don't want it. I mean, no offense to Tom Cruise. It's a great movie. I've seen it 20 times and I can't wait till 2 comes out. But that's my point of view, that I think it's really, if you identify your audience, you give them what they want, then I think that's where it's at. Let me shift to another topic. What about things like, and this has always been the holy grail for me, sponsorships. Football stadiums have sponsors. They build it. Geico builds a stadium. Red Bull builds a stadium. How come we can't build, channels? Geico's Watch Free Flicks. Geico, you're listening. It's going to cost you a lot of money, but why aren't we developing, and why hasn't the industry developed that kind of additional revenue, whether it be sponsorships or partnerships with the advertisers? I mean, this is something, I've always wanted to explore. I don't understand why it's not happening throughout the industry. Guys?
I think there are both supply and demand factors that kind of play into that. From a supply perspective, I would say for Geico to sponsor something, and Geico, by the way, has sponsored the Roku channel in the past.
Saw that. Yeah,
so they're looking for
numbers in the Roku channel.
Right. So they're looking for scale, right? So from a supply perspective, if you have enough scale and you can show them the value, I think there are opportunities available. From a demand perspective, I think the challenge is that a lot of the media is, bought and sold traditionally through the agencies. and more so video being transacted over programmatic. Programmatic doesn't allow you to do any of this, right? So you need to
Correct.
have a direct sales team that's going out and talking to the agency and building these programs up. And a lot of the times, quite frankly, I feel agencies don't want to do anything new. They're lazy. They're happy, buying from the same folks, exactly the same thing. And not a lot of agencies are receptive to new ideas and concepts. So I think if you're talking to the right folks, I think there's, and you have the scale, I think there is an opportunity. But, if you're not talking to the right folks, then it doesn't matter how much scale you have, they're never going to do it.
David, what do you think?
For us,
you've tried this. You must have gone after some of these people.
Well, here's the thing, because we work with agencies, and when it comes to sponsorship, oftentimes what they're looking for, and you have to pitch them, you have to have your full, you have to have the concept and pitch them. They're looking specifically, whether it's the TV or the OTT environment, they're looking for more branded programming opportunities. But because we don't do original programming, we won't get involved in branded programming. Now, what we're doing with some of these agencies, this is separate, but some of the participants on this call may also have a social media component to their business, specifically Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We have 10 social media channels, and we've been successful at gaining sponsorships for some of our social media channels, where they're more likely, they can see, where they're willing to put their budgets into social media versus OTT and the opportunity right now. But at the same time, doing sales is one of the most difficult parts of this business, right? Whether you're looking for sponsorships, whether you're looking for more campaigns for programmatic, ad sales is very tricky. And typically everything goes to, the Hulus and the YouTubes and the Tubies of the world, and you have to fight for the other scraps.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, guys. We haven't touched on this because everybody talks about this, but I want to bring in the pandemic just for a second. We all pray and hope that this is going to, go away in terms of a vaccine coming. It's not going to go away. But that a vaccine will come, and sometime, hopefully the next 6 months to a year or a year and a half, God willing sooner, we're kind of back to normal. So the pandemic has driven discovery. I mean, that's the reason we're all up in our viewership. I mean, it forced people who were sitting home, especially during the early quarantine days, to go and say, wow, I'm home. What do I got to do? Take care of my kids, eat and watch TV, and hopefully working if they're working from home. Will there be a change when this pandemic is over? Are we going to then see a drop in all these channels, including our own, that have, gotten higher viewership, are now investing more in promotion and this and that? Is this permanent? I mean, are viewers going to stay? What's your feeling on that? Is the pandemic, something that completely catalyzed this and will unfortunately continue to, or how's this going to affect long term?
I think certainly when things get back to normal, whenever that may be, hopefully sooner rather than later. I believe, streaming numbers will come down. Just TV viewing in general will come down. Right now, I believe the number is the average American is watching 5.8 hours of TV a day, which I don't know who these people are. I mean, that's a lot of TV, which is great.
I might be one of them.
Which is great for our business if you're in it, but I don't know anyone who watches 5.8, but that's the data that's out there. And I believe when things get back to normal and we can get back to our lives and meet our friends and go out to movies, go out to concerts, go out to sporting events, certainly the numbers should come down. But I think it's this critical time when people are mostly in lockdown, not really going out much, that you have the chance to market your service, have audience discover your service, and have them be, become a loyal kind of fan into the future.
Vikrant, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with everything that David just said. If I think there was a news article about a month ago about how a lot of these subscription services were giving out extended free trials, right? And people were signing up. So the question is, okay, after the pandemic, are people going to continue with all these services, right? Obviously, no, because if I've signed up for 4 services just to kind of play around with and see, because, I get 1 month free of stars now, and I can watch as much as I want during this 30-day period. And I've also signed up for Showtime, and I've also signed up for HBO, or, whatever the case might be. I just, to the discussion that we were having earlier, there's no appetite in my household to have so many subscription services. So for sure, I'm not going to continue with them. But to David's point, at least it has given all of these service providers the opportunity to entice me and get me to at least try their service, so that if I end up with 1 or 2 of those, hopefully it'll be, one of these guys.
We're going to have a special guest join us right now. Steve Apple, introduce yourself.
How you guys doing? I'm real interested in what you guys.
Introduce yourself to our viewers.
Most of you guys know me. It's Stephen Apple. I'm the Vice President of Industry Sales at OTT.X. I'm your host, and I'm a friend of Gary's. Gary and I have known each other for at least 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, like 40.
So I've been around.
Steve, we lost you.
Great. And so I think you guys are probably the best ears in the business, if not the most eyes in the business. I just have a question.
See, stop. Say that again, because you went away. Say that line again. You went away for a second, so start over. I'm Steve Apple. Start what you just said before.
Yeah.
Eyes and ears.
I'm a fan, and I'm eyes and ears with Gary, and I've been following Gary's movement towards success for years when he started Popcorn Flicks. So he knows the business. We differ and we have some arguments about certain things. I won't get into that. I just have a question for both of you guys. Why aren't the AVOD channels searchable in terms of discovery on like Google and things like that? I can find programming all over the place for the other VODs, but not AVODs. Why can't we find your programming on the typical search mechanisms?
Guys,
Yeah,
I got my answer. Take a crack.
Yeah, we've explored that, Stephen. We've reached out to Google, tried to get our library indexed as part of their search engine, as an example. I think they're going through a process where they don't have an easy way or system to ingest the content and make it indexable as part of their offering just yet. So that's something that I am told that they're working on. With Tubi as an example, you can go and search for a movie on Google, and as part of the various options where you can go find the movie, it will list out Tubi.
True. Just Tubi though, right?
Yeah. So it's a partnership that Tubi was able to do with them. And our hope is that, again, with the proliferation of more free ad-supported services, Google will make it more seamless and easy for publishers to submit their content and have it be indexed. But unfortunately, it's not there yet.
David, what do you think?
Yeah, we've tried the same thing and ultimately run up to similar issues. And the closest thing we do is just paid marketing across different channels, including AdSense, obviously social media and in-platform marketing, just to make sure we can market to different sets of audiences.
But David, that would be when you have something you think is a specific piece of content that would be, wanted by the masses, correct?
Correct. I mean, you have to put your best foot forward. So.
Okay. So my answer to that is Vikrant has 55,000 cartoons. I've seen quite a few of them. I'm not sure if I went to Google and I put in, I don't know, one of his 55,000 that is going to be very practical. On my own channel, what you see on my channel is, I specialize. I mean, of all the genres, and especially because I have 6 channels, soon to be 8. But I focus on genre. I focus on horror. I focus on action. I focus on adventure. I focus on foreign. I focus on documentary. And the movies I have on my channel, I have some that are very well known. I have some Academy Award winners, except stuff like that. But the majority of my content is geared towards my audience, and a good portion of my audience are 18 to 35 males. And quite frankly, they're not looking for name movies. So even if I went to the expense and the time to hook up with Google and get all these listed, I'm not sure they'd be more than my brother, who happens to be watching this call, and a couple of other friends who would want to go and look and find them. So for me, in my business, it's not that important. It's important on my channel, because when somebody comes across a movie and they go, what was that called? I want to get back to it. They put in a couple of words and it comes up.
Okay, follow up with that question. What responsibility do you lay on your content owners to promote their own movies on your channel?
Well, that's an easy answer for me, but guys, go first.
So with us, Stephen, it depends. We have a number of, on the kids vertical as an example, we have a number of content partners who have very, very strong social media presence, right? On YouTube, on Facebook,
like Lego,
Instagram, etc.
Like Lego, for instance.
Right. And so yeah, with Lego as an example, when we announced the partnership, they made an announcement through their social media platforms and outlets. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on who the partner is, right? And the ability that they have to be able to do it in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
When let David answer. Stephen, let David answer.
In our experience, a very small percentage of, let's say, the content owners or the producers or anyone affiliated with the TV show or film or documentary, it's not very often that they're going to do marketing. And you have to understand, they have limited marketing means. And anytime I've met creatives, producers, directors, actors, they really don't.
Be careful.
They, I have to say, many of them, they don't know too much about the business side of distribution. And as I said, in terms of marketing, yes, they have their social media feeds, but some of these are not A-list stars that have a huge platform. So oftentimes, we're doing the marketing. And I have to say, if you go to American Film Market, if you go to MIPCOM, if you go to Hong Kong Film Mart, if you go anywhere, yes, you have film studios and TV networks there. But at the same time, the majority of licensors are agents. And oftentimes, agents will sell and license a film on behalf of the producer. And the producer doesn't necessarily always know when their film is coming out or where their film is going to be on. And so that's the case where what we found is that, oftentimes the producer, they're not doing their own marketing. It's really up to the service or platform to do the marketing.
So I have a little different take on it. And it has to do with whether or not, it has to do with let me say this. Given that the channels, my channels, the majority of my viewership at the moment is coming from Roku and Amazon Fire TV, where most of the viewership comes from most channels. That at the end of the day, for a producer to go out and spend money and time and resources to promote any one of their given particular movies, number one, they'd have to be advertising or promoting to viewers who are on those platforms. So, there are a lot of viewers on those platforms, but at the end of the day, a lot of that, it's not one movie fits all. Secondly, the fact that I am in a percentage partnership with them, like most of us, where I get a piece and they get a piece. And the onus of responsibility for my piece, as I see it, is really to help drive the content on my platform. Now, there is an exception to that. I'm not going to say what, but I'm about to, there's a new channel that's about to launch in my world. And the content providers are in business with me. And they have a very large universe of viewers. Now, all of a sudden, it's a different ballgame because now there is a vested interest in all content that they're providing to our channel. And they have, significant resources to go to. I have significant resources to go to, given, the channels that I'm on and the cross promotion that I can do. Now it's a different story. Now we sit down and now we develop a strategy because they're vested interest. So unless there is a content provider who has something so niche or so many movies on my channel that it forms its own genre, I don't see how that would make sense for them. And I think that they would feel like it's an added expense for them that, they just don't want to do nor feel that they should. And I agree with them.
Okay, I'm just thinking in terms of that you guys must have gotten some calls or emails. Why is this this financial report so tepid? Why am I not getting enough money?
Say that again. Say it again.
What I'm trying to say is that you probably have gotten calls from your content people asking you why their quarterly check is so light.
Okay, I'm sure we all have had that. Yeah.
And that's why I'm thinking there should be a responsibility on the content provider to market their movies on your channel somehow, either by social or spend some money. If they made the movie or they bought a library, I think it would behoove them to be a partner of yours, not just a vendor.
Well, let me answer that. I mean, without saying names, there are people who we both know, all of us know, who you will see them saying on places like, whether it be LinkedIn or other social media, we're proud to have our movie on, such and such. But again, that's great. And it gets the word out. And it also gets the word out that they're in business, with this particular channel. But I don't know how, if you are one of, God knows how many movies are on Tubi, 30, 40, 50,000, or the 55,000 cartoons that are on Vikram's Happy Kids. I mean, if somebody were to drive, some traffic to that, when you have so many assets, I mean, unless that movie is showcased, it would just be lost in the shuffle. I think it's practical for Netflix and Amazon. You go on Netflix and you'll see big billboards for, their new programming. That makes sense because one, they've invested hundreds of millions of dollars into it. But we're talking about libraries that we're getting. We're not talking about any premier, movies. It's not the nature of most AVOD channels, including the all the ones like ours that have significant viewership.
Yeah, I got it. I know it's an impossible journey. I guess the only way you personally could market yourself is not really by traditional marketing, but by getting your titles on other devices. Like
we don't have the right. In many cases, we don't have the rights to that. But by the way, just to put a cap on this, and I move on to another subject matter. There are ways through the various platforms, whether it be Roku or Amazon or others, where you can highlight a title. We do that all the time. We think that it's Halloween, and we think that I'm just making this up. It's Halloween, and we think there's going to be a big horror movie that we have, that's going to draw viewership. We'll spend the money we'll advertise that particular and showcase that channel, and we'll put it up, in some very prominent place, and that's how that's done.
Okay.
So guys, we got about 10, 15 minutes left. Folks who are listening, now's a good time for your questions if you have it. Alex asked, how much does content matter on giving you a slice of the pie? Alex, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, but content does matter, period. I mean, it's why people are tuning in, to your channels. I'm not sure that's what you were asking, but and I think, the question of content in general, we're all out there looking for content, and like I said, the content in many cases is non-exclusive. I think it's not so much about the content, although you need watchable content. I think it's really how you present the content and how you set up your user interface on the channel so that it's easy for people to find it. The more discoverable stuff is, the better. But anyway, let's in these last few minutes, last 10 minutes or so, is there anything that you guys, Vikrant and David, are there anything that you're thinking about in terms of the future of this stuff that you'd like to see happen in the industry or in our world that's not happening, that would really beef up, everything that we're doing? I think that's a good final kind of question to look at.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the question of, as you think about the transition, just tying it back to the topic of discussion here, if you think about the transition from linear to OTT, right? You've seen the transition happen with the consumers, where the consumers, compared to 3, 5, 7 years ago, they understand streaming, they like it, they have different services that they're consuming, and that familiarity and comfort has happened, right? If you think about, so that transition, the user transition has happened, and is speeding up. If you think about content that's coming onto the platform, I think that transition also has happened or is progressing very, very quickly, where, to the point that I made earlier, Disney has shut off its linear service and is focusing only on streaming and OTT, right? So there's more people watching, there's more content coming in. I feel from my perspective, and perhaps the three of us here, from our perspective, I think what's still trailing is the monetization aspect of it, right? It's increasing, but it's not there yet.
Say more about that. Specifically, what do you mean?
So if you compare to, if you compare the television advertising industry to the OTT streaming advertising industry, we're not even on the map, right?
In terms of CPMs.
Well, in terms of overall spend, right? In $70 billion television advertising industry, and how much is being spent on OTT, right? So to me, what really fuels this is more money coming in, where as more money coming in, as campaigns and brands move their money away from television, that people are either not watching anymore or watching less and less of as we go. They bring in more money from television and migrate that over to OTT. That increases everybody's fill rates, that increases everybody's CPM, that gives us more money that we can then invest in marketing, user acquisition, gives us more money that we can invest in content acquisition. And so that's really, I think, the one thing that I feel still needs to catch up, right? And there's a whole host of reasons why it's still slow or what needs to happen to enable that, which is perhaps a different discussion. But I feel like that really is, for me personally, for the ad-supported industry, streaming industry, I feel like that's one thing that really will speed things up.
Well, and then I want to hear from David and from Steve. Let me just kind of put kind of a bundle around that. So what you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, is that there are still not enough of the traditional advertisers who have seen what we're all doing to say, this is not the future. This is now. This is not the tail of the dog. This is the dog.
Right.
And in order to get your money's worth, because we have been very, very accommodating to the advertising community, because we understand, there are limits to the highs and lows on what we can charge and what the traffic will bear. But our hope is that as we become more and more critical to the viewing audience, which just absolutely ties us into the premise of this, will OTT replace, regular television? At that point, there will be a shift, and now we can all do much more. David, what do you like to see happen?
Well, specifically for our services, what we're looking for, because it's become incredibly competitive, as an independent, as a privately owned business. I think back to 7 years ago when there were 200 to 250 channel apps on Roku, and our two channels at the time were top 30 with zero marketing.
Along
right?
with Franz and mine.
And that was a good time, pre-cable networks coming into OTT. Right now, it's incredibly competitive, and so what we're looking to do, because it's a discovery issue, right? Let's say you're on Roku, which is the most popular OTT platform. It's how do I discover digital media rights as channels, right? I mean, there's thousands of applications on Roku. So it's a discovery issue. You do have to do in-platform marketing on Roku, which has gotten very expensive every single year. We used to do a lot more advertising on Roku, but now when their clients, their biggest clients are all the cable networks, they could charge whatever they want, and that's what they're doing. It's very expensive to market in-platform, but you do see the returns. You can see the conversion, the COI, the cost of the install, and it's you get a good ROI in terms of what you're investing in, but it is expensive. So what we're looking to do, because there's so many applications on the major devices, is be aggressive in terms of rolling out our digital linear services on virtual MVPD platforms. And at the same time, because US market is so competitive, look at certain key international territories to see where the best place to expand your service is. And that's very expensive because you have to clear all the rights to your content. And oftentimes you may have to localize, so you may have to subtitle in another language. And we have experience doing that, so we have internal teams, so it's a lot cheaper. But we're looking at that, and one thing that's been very helpful for us is our social media publishing, because we can see where a lot of our global audience is, and a lot of that data surprises us. And if we see a big audience, let's say in Australia and New Zealand, even in India, India is a huge market for some of our social media channels. So that's kind of the 2.0 step for us, is look to launch in certain international territories and expand our services there.
Yeah, I think the future, and I think next summit, it would be a really good topic about exploring the international. Steve, you want to take a quick shot at what you think the industry needs in order to, push this whole thing forward?
Gary, I defer to the three experts in front of me.
Well, one of the things that I can say on your behalf and your organization's behalf, OTT.X, that that is one of the ways that the universe that we're working in expands and gets to coordinate, because it happens to be very functional in terms of networking and everything else that it does.
I have to back out because I have a major presentation coming up.
Yep, and we're actually ending in about 2 minutes here.
Okay, so guys, thank you for dealing with.
Thanks for helping us, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
So guys, I think I got to take Steve off there. I think that the future is very bright. I think we're just, I'm not saying we're at the tip of the iceberg, because we're further along than that. But surely, COVID notwithstanding, this has been a pivotal year, which has elevated, a lot of what we've been doing. It's obviously given a lot of, the media has given a lot of play because people are home watching TV. And I think, you know, we still have a way to grow. And I think, David, what you said in terms of the international, that is definitely an area that all of us, I mean, it's a little bit of a black box and a holy grail for all of us because of the nature of the geographic, you know, that they have to have it in the language of the country. We have to find the outlets. In this country, it's simple. There's Roku, there's Amazon, there's Pluto, you know, there's you know, all the big, you know, the big guns, and we're all on all those. But I think you know, the future is bright and we're in the right place. I want to thank you guys. I want to thank all of you out there who you know, were watching, and hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. And I'm about to do another seminar with a whole different bunch of experts, also good friends of mine like these guys. And that's happening at 7:05, and you can go onto your agenda and take a look. All right, everybody. Thank you, and we're signing off.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.